Okay everybody, welcome back. This should be step number 12, should be the final step in the e-buggy build. So I've got all my electronics done and set up. I've got a little bit of background noise going. That's my charger running so I can get these packs charged up. Hopefully our neighbors are making some noise in the background. Hopefully that noise is better than the noise they're making. So I'm sorry for what little noise we have. Okay, so I'm going to get this camera turned around to a POV view and we'll get started. Okay, this should be the last step in the e-buggy build process. So we got all our electronics mounted. The first thing I need to do is get the motor mounted. So what I'm doing, I have the pinions. I use a 17 tooth pinion here at the warehouse. Probably needs to be 18 or 19 on a bigger track. But what I'm doing here is I've had the pinion back off, so what I like to do is mark it where the set screw goes and put a little notch with a Dremel. Let's see here. Nothing too crazy. Just take the little cutoff wheel and put a notch. Like I say, nothing fancy. That's just a little notch that will keep that from backing out. And then I've had Loctite on this before, but I'm gonna add just a tiny bit more. You don't have to go crazy with this Loctite. Just make sure there's some on there so the threads don't want to back out. Then we'll go ahead and run her down in our little notch there. Crank it down real good, and it shouldn't back out on you. Okay, so go ahead and place it with the gear centered. Let's get these started. We're gonna need some Loctite. All my mounts under the chassis are loose, so I can get this mounted first. All these screws get Loctite. You can dip it and put it on both. Just dip one, add it to both of them. Like I said on this one, I said earlier that you want to make sure it gets over those ribs so it sits even. Go ahead and run these down. This clamp setup is a little unique to HB, so I'll go ahead and kind of push these down flat, put the gear in the center, start clamping it down even on both screws. Okay, so don't clamp it down quite all the way yet, just get it snug. And then we're gonna have to set our mesh. So it slides in and out like kind of like a nitro motor. So I'll go ahead and take two out. Go ahead and put some Loctite on all of them, I guess. This is getting these set is a little tricky. Takes a little bit of patience. So I'll go ahead and just barely snug 2 of them, the opposite each other. Hopefully I can still move it, and then I'll try to feel it. That's too tight. So these are mod 1 gears, so the gap doesn't have to be crazy. Something like that. Good starting point. You'll come back and check it after you make some of these initial runs. So I'll go ahead and clamp these down and check it again. Ooh, that's too tight. So I'll back them all off. Slide it out. Try to clamp it there. That's too tight. So maybe I gotta set it a little on the loose side. Try to hold it in place while you do it. Still too tight. It's kind of tricky. You got to keep it pretty square. You just kind of have to eyeball it, make sure it's not all crooked and stuff. Get it as straight as possible. And that gear is going to break in and seat itself. While I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and give this a little extra crank. Make sure I remembered that. So now, just give these a good crank. Lock them down. Now these will be hard to get out when if you go to work on it. I'm gonna go ahead and clamp the motor down pretty tight. You don't have to overdo it. Just make sure it's good and tight. Don't overdo it and you'll be warping something, you know. So okay, there's that. I'm gonna put some tools up. Now I said it'd be hard to get apart when you take it off, so what I use the JTP Jared Tebow part, clamps onto these MIP drivers and helps you knock it out if you have to. It's almost a necessary thing. So okay, so next up we're going to be setting the ride height and then toe and camber. So let me get some tires out and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back with you. So we're going to get the ride height set, but first the camber was off a good bit, so go ahead and set a baseline somewhere around 1 on the front, you know, and 2 in the back camber. Get it even. It's got to be somewhat close. The rears have a little bit of positive camber, so I went by the links on the nitro buggy, but it's still off just a fuzz, so we'll get it in the ballpark and we'll come back and measure it. So you got a little bit of positive camber there. So it's close enough to get us started. So I've got a mess. I've got tools everywhere, so please excuse it. So we got the batteries in. We got everything set race ready. It looks like it's a little low. We'll go ahead and do a drop. And we're going 25 in the front, 27 in the rear, and I put it right here on the chassis. This, you know, everybody does it a little different. Give a consistent way to do it, and you'll be good to go. So I do the rear right there. That's 26.5. That's pretty close. That's like 19, so we got to crank it down the front a pretty good bit. I put it right there on the edge of the flat spot there at the front. So 23. 24. 25. Let's check the rear again. 27. Okay, so now we got that. Got the ride height where I want it. Let's check the camber for real. Go ahead and set it, and then we'll come and check our toe and the droop final step. That's a little bit, need a little bit less camber or caster. Supposed to be 2 degrees. There we go. 2 degrees. The front's supposed to be 1, and it's positive, so we'll come back. And I just pick it up and compress the suspension. It's just the method I use. It's not necessarily the correct way, it's just the way I do it, and you do it consistently, you'll be good. I put like 3 cranks on it. One degree. Okay. So next I'm gonna check the toe. I got this flat spot on my toolbox over here that I use for setting this stuff. I'll center it best I can. I gotta move this crap out of the way. Okay, so this is just in my way. So I'll set it up against the wall. Looking for something to keep the car from rolling. Set it as straight as you can. Puts up against the tire to keep it from rolling. And then you just use your camber gauge against the wall. So I got everything in the way. I can tell now it's towed in a little bit. Make sure your servo is straight. Then use your camber gauge to against the wall. You want it 1 degree. That's pretty close. Actually, it's pretty good. Pretty good starting point. So there's that. So now we'll come back. I like to check the shock positions. Make sure they're the same. 6.5, 7.5. So you want to go down this one a little, out on this one a little. We'll get them pretty much the same. I probably should have done this ahead of time, but we'll come back and check the ride height again. 7mm, 6.5. We'll set them both at 7 and then readjust our ride height. same on the rear. 4mm, 4.8. Four 4.7, 4.5. Okay, 4.5. Okay, so now we'll come back and check our ride height again. We are at 28, so we'll back it off same amount, 2. $27. Check the front. That's 24.5. We'll give it a little crank. Should be pretty close. That's a little much. And as it breaks in, this is going to change. You're going to come back and you check this every time before you put it on the track, obviously. Okay, let's look at our camber one more time. It's a little much. That's just right. A little much. Two degrees. Yep. One degree might be a little much. Pretty close. Ooh, a little much there. Okay, so that's a pretty good starting point. So now I'm going to take these tires off and we'll go back over to the toolbox and do the droop. So I'll be right back. Okay, so for the droop, I set the axle height in relation to the chassis. So you take a 36mm block. These were 3D printed by John the Voice Jennings for me. I appreciate that, John. Set it under the front and back, make sure it's good and stable on a good flat surface. Then you take your trusty HB ride height gauge, and it's 36mm blocks. So 30mm is going to be a center of the chassis because the hubs are 12mm, so the center of it is 6mm. So 36mm, 30mm will be 0. So the back, slide it up under the hub. I've done a video about this before, so make sure you check that out if you're interested. I set it at -3 below the chassis, and that one's dead on 3mm. Let's see what this one is. This one's about 2.5, so we'll back the droop screw off just a fuzz. Don't take much. Actually, that's the wrong way. We're gonna go 3mm below the chassis. There we go. It's okay for the front. We go +1. Right now we're at +2. +1, +2 is pretty good. So we'll back that off a fuzz. It's pretty much maxed out droop at this point. Okay. Same here. It's pretty much maxed out unless you lengthen the shocks. So there's that. This next up we'll be able to put our charged batteries in there, put some tires on it, get the body out, and we'll put this thing on the track and we'll be right back. Okay, here we go. Here's our maiden voyage with the new e-buggy. So let's throw it down and see what happens. Make sure it's tracking straight. All right, we'll go up on the stand and make a few laps. All right, let's see what happens here. A little loose, just like expected. New kit always starts off pretty loose. Looks like I need a little more brake.